So this is day 9. I was able to get a couple hours to myself at the farm, so I was able to get a lot done with Arlo. Prior to this, I did the regular approach and retreat with the stick until he was really comfortable with me walking right up to him. Once I felt he was comfortable enough, I grabbed my hands-on grooming glove. I just got these gloves a couple months ago and I love them already. They pretty much turn your hands into curry combs. I was expecting him to be nervous because it was something different. Anytime I do anything, even just change my body posture, he gets extremely nervous and flighty. But he allowed me to come right up to him, as you can see here, and really enjoyed being brushed by these gloves. Here he gets a little nervous, but he still is only taking a couple steps before stopping and turning to face me again. I apologize, I didn't realize the camera was not facing his entire pen during this part of the filming. And I keep trying to get on the right side of him, but he finds ways to block me from getting over there with his head. Here he actually starts resting his head on my shoulder while I'm brushing his right shoulder. He's fine with me touching him over there as long as he keeps me in that left eye. So here I went and grabbed a mane brush, or a tail brush. And again, of course, his mane is on the right side of his body, so I couldn't go and stand directly next to him, but I was able to reach around and brush out his mane for the first time, which I was shocked at how thick it actually was, but luckily it wasn't too tangled. Just there, he kind of did turn his head back, so I wanted to make sure I stepped back and rewarded that for allowing me to be in his right eye. He's fine with the brush going up near his ears. And he really wasn't nervous at all when I approached him with this blue brush in my hand. It didn't take long for him to let me to walk right up and start brushing him with it. So I gave him breaks in between each of these different objects that I'm introducing to him today. This time I have a halter looped over my left arm. He really didn't pay much mind to this either. He allowed me to come right back up to him and start rubbing him with it, which I was pretty shocked at, but he's doing a good job of teaching me not to have expectations when I walk into his pen. I was not expecting to get this halter on him, though, and I did not get it on him today, but he did allow me to rub him all over with it and toss the rope over his neck a couple times, which was enough progress for me for one day. Another first that we accomplished today was the first time that he allowed me to put 2 hands on him at one time. Previously, if I was petting his neck and I went and moved my free hand at all, he would take off across the pen, but today he allowed me to have both hands on him at once. Here, I actually, because he was being so good, I started looping the rope around his neck. You can see he allows me to go up in between his ears and rub up there. I was actually playing with his left ear a little bit, and he did not mind it at all. So I set my halter up to see what he would do if I attempted to put it on him. He's very protective over his nose, which I knew from before with trying to touch his nose. But here I'm able to reach around and grab the crown piece of the halter, and I actually am able to put that in place behind his ears without any reaction from him. And if he would just keep his head a little bit lower, I probably could have got the halter on, but he did just a good job of staying right out of reach. He really does not want anything going up over the top of his nose, and I still can't pet in between his eyes on his head or touch his forelock. So once I get those areas, him comfortable with me touching him in those areas, I should be able to get a halter on him, no problem. Here I just looped the halter around his neck and grabbed the ropes to try to put that around his nose. That way if I did get it around and he freaked out like here, it would just fall off. So here again, I'm just holding the rope and acting as though I'm putting a halter on to see how he reacts to my hands going in that position. And his nose goes sky high. He acts as though he knows what a halter is. He's fine with me rubbing the sides of his head, but as soon as I cross that line of where his eye is to go over the top is when he either leaves me or just lifts his head higher. A couple times I was able to get my hand over the top of his nose, but only briefly. So right here, I am able to actually get my hand up and over the top of his nose briefly right there, and I wanted to make sure I rewarded that by stepping back and giving him a big release. So again, here he allows me to kind of get over the top of his nose. I back off. And then I just try to start flipping the rope over his back to see how he would react. He surprises me once again and just stands still. He tolerates it for a little while before leaving. So here I'm just trying to rub him all over with the halter. I am purposely trying to get the halter to bounce around so that it hits him as I'm rubbing him with my hand, just so he gets used to having things bumping up against his body. You can see it makes him a little nervous. But I like that he's only taking a couple steps before turning back to me to say, okay, let's try again. I'm going to be working a lot with this halter during this week. I really feel like getting a halter on him is going to help us progress quicker. It'll allow me to kind of position him better and not allow him to leave as much. I'm hoping I can also get on that right hand side more if I have more control over where he's going. So I worked with him for this for probably a half hour, and then again I gave him a break. Right before I left, I decided to go back out again. Now that I have been able to touch him, I discovered that his coat is in pretty poor condition. It's really dry. And he also has a condition that's called rain rot. It's a fungus infection that occurs when they are exposed to rain or snow for an extended period of time. And typically the cure for it was always to just bathe your horse and pick the scabs off on a daily basis, which is not possible for him. So luckily a couple of months ago I saw a Facebook ad for a product called Coat Defense, which is the container that I have in my hand. It's a powder, and pretty much all you do is sprinkle it on and rub it in, and apparently you can see results after one day. I ordered it, but I luckily have not had a need for it for my other horses yet. I knew that he was probably going to need some of it, so that's why I decided to have it on hand for when he got here. He was not having any part of me getting near him with this container in my hand. He did good all day with the brushes and the halter. I guess by this point he was just like, okay lady, that's enough. So the container's closed. I'm just trying to get close enough to him that I can possibly sprinkle some on his neck, and his withers were especially really bad. I know I probably won't be able to get much further than that, but if I can at least just start treating those areas, it's one step in the right direction. So again, it's still closed. I'm just holding it out to him to see how he'll react. It was a pretty windy day, so I didn't want to start pouring it on him without knowing that he was going to stand there and get the full amount that was coming out of the container on him. He was starting to calm down a little bit, but still not enough where I'd be able to apply it to him. So after trying for probably 10 minutes with the container, I got him to at least calm down where I can walk up next to him with it in my hand before deciding to try again, but this time without the container, with just the product in my hand. Again, it's a powder, and it's a pretty windy day today, so I first worked on approaching him with my hand cupped against my body like I was holding the powder. And he did fine. He allowed me to walk right up to him, and I pretended to pour the powder out of my hand onto his neck, and he stood there. But of course, as soon as I put the powder in my hand to go try with the actual product, he, I guess, either smelt it in my hand or had a different way about me. He sensed it and got nervous all over again. So here I'm trying not to spill this powder all over the place while keeping him calm. And anytime I go to move my hand towards him, he takes off running. So right here I was finally able to get one handful on him. I was able to get a total of 3 on him in the day. His right along his withers and right along the base of his mane is where it was the worst, so that's where I applied all the powder for today. I was happy I was able to get that on him, and hopefully it can start helping him. I just ended the day by going back over and rubbing him all over without anything scary in my hand. we did a lot today, and he tolerated everything really well. So hopefully he keeps going the way he did today, and we make a lot of progress this week.